What's up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. Bills, Ravens, probably the game of week 4, Sunday night, prime time. We cannot wait. Head out to Baltimore tomorrow. But before we get to that, we got to get to this. Shout is brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. And right now, it's rush to the Tops Red Zone. Get game day ready with Tops. Score big savings, winning recipes, and everything you need for the ultimate game day experience. Head to the Tops Red Zone in store for all your game day essentials and more. Let Tops take care of you on game day. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, not too much, man. Excited to break down this game. Like you said, one of, if not the game of the week.
You know, the biggest thing for me going into this matchup and where I wanted to kind of start things is like, this is a Baltimore Ravens team, kind of touched on it a little bit the other day on Wednesday, that just seems to struggle closing out games. And you go back to 2022 when the Bills were able to come back and erase a deficit, I think at one point 10 or 14 points, whatever that ended up being, maybe more than that. I got to go back and look. They play their best football, the Bills do, against the Baltimore Ravens late in games, you know, at least in recent history. You know, that they had the 20-3 playoff game a couple of years ago. Taron Johnson obviously won't be available in this game, but you go back to last week with the Dallas Cowboys struggling down the stretch, the Baltimore Ravens, that is, to close out the Dallas Cowboys, leaving the door open for them. That to me is going to be the thing that I'm watching the most is, can the Baltimore Ravens get out to a lead on the Buffalo Bills? And if they are able to, are they able to play from ahead? Because we've already learned that the Bills, if they get to play from ahead, they're a really tough team to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing about the Ravens is, you know, you watch how they play, and it does. It feels like every game's a nail biter by the end of it. That Dallas game, they got within 3. They had their opportunities to win that matchup. They lose a game to a Raiders team they probably had no business losing to. And week 1, we all know how close that game came down to, with Isaiah Likely just having his foot touch out of bounds on that final play of the game to tie it. So they've been in every game, but they let teams stay in games as well. It's their Achilles heel. It's something to monitor. You know, we know the Bills that when they win, they can win by large amounts, but when they lose, these are usually tight games. So if the Bills are in a tight game, things kind of maybe lean in their favor in this matchup with the way that Baltimore has played in tight games or close games in the last few years.
You look at like the defensive playmakers for the Baltimore Ravens, and honestly, right now you got to start with Kyle Van Noy, who's been a real revelation for them on the edge as a pass rusher. That's going to be one of the key matchups for me in this game. Odafe Owe is also another guy that's kind of in the mix with those two matchups. Spencer Brown, Deion Dawkins. How do the Bills, are they able to kind of continue the way that they've played through the first 3 weeks? Deion Dawkins, I'm working on a story today about Aaron Cromer, 2.2% pressure rate allowed through 3 weeks on pass plays. Deion Dawkins. Spencer Brown has still yet to give up a singular pressure all season in 3 games long. That's going to be tested. I mean, this is a Baltimore Ravens defensive line, maybe not as good as recent seasons, but I'm going to be watching, can the Bills neutralize that front? You got Matabuke in the middle. He can also move out to the edge as well. That's going to be, to me, what maybe decides this game, because if you're not able to get pressure on Josh Allen some way, and we'll get to the different ways that they can try to generate it, you just leave yourself open with the way that they're running the ball for them to drive the football down the field. They're not turning the ball over, scoring points, and then having to play from behind.
Yeah, when it comes to this offensive line play, especially on the edges, there has not been a better duo than Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. So in those one-on-one matchups, based on what we've seen so far, I really like how they factor into this game and how they can keep those two guys, or the entire pass rush, I guess, depth chart of Baltimore in check. But you kind of hinted at it. There's ways, though, that Baltimore can get after this Bills offense, and blitzing is probably the main way. They like to send that pressure. How the Bills respond to that, we'll see. Allen obviously can be very good against the blitz in his career. He's had moments of greatness. So it's going to be fun to watch how the Ravens go after the Bills in this matchup, because one-on-one, it's going to be hard for them to win those matchups against Dawkins and Brown based on what we've seen in terms of their elite play through 3 weeks.
I mentioned Odafe Owe. You also have David Ajabo, who,
Yeah.
a couple of draft picks that have really started to come on for them. And it's the question, right, Ryan? Like the stat that's out there right now with Josh Allen, I have it here. He is the number one rated Pro Football Focus, and I know I roll, but like it's important for this. I think it's
Yeah.
useful stat. 92.9 grade from PFF, Josh Allen, when blitzed. His stats, 19 for 25, 293 total yards, 6 touchdowns, no turnovers, none have resulted in a sack. And the Ravens are like an interesting team and a experiment here because they do blitz at, top tier of the league percentage wise. They've had 30 blitzes all season, although a lot of that was last week. I think Dak Prescott, 21 blitzes last week for the Baltimore Ravens. That is matchup specific because I think Dak Prescott,
True.
if you make things kind of muddled back there for him, he's not as quick, as elite at getting outside of the pocket, going off script. I think he's got to be a little bit more on time. With Josh Allen, he's proven this season that if you want to blitz him, you're going to pay for it. So how do the Baltimore Ravens do it? Are they going to try to use a spy? You have Patrick Queen at the second level, Trent Simpson. Is that the Clemson linebacker?
Simpson. There was a Simpson linebacker at Clemson. I'm not sure if that's exactly the
Trenton
one or not.
Simpson. I'm going to look him up here right
Okay.
quick. Clemson. Yep. He was,
Okay.
remember he was in that draft class a couple of years ago, or maybe even last year. But those two guys at the second level, do the Baltimore Ravens decide to utilize a spy? That might be the way to try to control Josh Allen. But here's the bottom line, Ryan. You don't control Josh Allen. Like that's the whole point and what makes this matchup so intriguing. We'll get to the other side of the ball and how the Bills might attack Lamar Jackson. But when the Bills have the ball, I don't see a way for them to attack the Bills. And also, I saw an interesting stat. I think PFF put this out as well. 152 yards out of the slot this season for Khalil Shakir. That ranks fourth, I believe, in all of the NFL. And Baltimore has struggled through 3 games dealing with receivers out of the slot. So that's another matchup to watch.
Yeah, that did come from PFF. I actually took a screenshot of that today to bring up in the pod. So great
Look
minds
at
there.
that. Potty as usual.
When it comes to this matchup, it's tough to imagine the Ravens winning one-on-one. We've already talked about that, established that. If they try to blitz, I don't know how that's going to work against Buffalo because one thing we've seen from this Joe Brady-led offense is Josh Allen gets the ball out pretty quickly a lot of the time in this game, whether it's dropping it off to the back, coming out of the backfield, whether it's getting it to Khalil Shakir in the slot quickly, one of those tight ends. So if you blitz, it's not a foolproof plan either. I think the spy makes the most sense. Keep Allen in the pocket.
And I said, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I got to correct myself. I said Patrick Queen,
because he's
out
on the
from
Steelers,
Pittsburgh right now. I meant Roquan Smith. My bad.
Yes. But the spy makes the most sense in terms of trying to make Josh Allen, stay in the pocket and pass. But that's a lethal, that could cost you too, where the way he's passing the ball, the way that he's hitting, I call it hitting the singles instead of going for those home run shots. The way he's connecting on those passes and just moving the ball up and down the field, that's not a sure proof or a foolproof plan either. So eventually a team is going to figure something out, perhaps to slow this Bills offense down. I can't expect them to continue to score 30 plus points every single game this season. But until I see it, it's hard to envision even this Ravens defense stopping the Bills on a consistent basis on Sunday night.
Let's skip ahead just because it works before we get to Lamar Jackson. Players to watch in this game, Ryan. I'm going to ask you for yours in a second, but I'm going to give mine now because it fits into what I think is going to be key for the Bills offense having success in this game. And for me, it's Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid's had a really good start to the season. I think he's had 2 of his 3 games have been really good. He had the touchdown last week, really impressive off-script play. But he hasn't taken over and like dominated a game yet, right? Like in terms of target share, receptions, no Bills player has. They haven't had to do that yet. This is a Baltimore team that I still think is a serious contender. And I think this is going to call for potentially a star-like performance from a player outside of Josh Allen. And for me, I look at Dalton Kincaid. Here's why. Go back and watch Las Vegas versus Baltimore in week 2. The Raiders sneak out a win late. Again, a Baltimore team struggling in the second half, struggling to close out a team. Raiders come back from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter, and you look at the stat line, sure, Devontae Adams, 9 for 110 and a touchdown. But the guy that really controlled that game for the Baltimore Ravens and helped Gardner Minshew, Brock Bowers. 9
Mhm.
targets, 9 catches, 98 yards. I think that is the kind of stat line that Dalton Kincaid can replicate in this game against the Baltimore Ravens. I think they might, you take that slot stat, right? We mentioned Khalil Shakir. I think that could also apply for Dalton Kincaid and what he could potentially do in the passing game.
Yeah, that's a great choice. If I were going on the offense side of the ball, I would have gone with Kincaid or I would have gone with Shakir. I'm on the other side of the ball, though. For the Bills to win this game, they need 2 players to step up, and they're at the same position at linebacker. You need Dorian Williams. You need Balin Spector to play well because this is a Ravens team. Warren Sharp put out a really good video yesterday about how the Ravens attack opposing defenses, and it's not the deep ball. It's not the outside where the Bills have great cornerback play. It's those short, quick hitters where you need the athleticism of Dorian Williams and Balin Spector to help this Bills team shut those passes down, get in those lanes, break up passes, make immediate tackles. They have to be sure tacklers on Sunday Night Football. The short passes is that's kind of the bread and butter right now for Lamar Jackson in this offense in the passing game. And they're also going to be needed to stop Derrick Henry in terms of the run game as well. So for me, the players of the game are the Buffalo starting linebackers in this matchup. If they play well, there's a great chance this team moves to 4-0. If they struggle whatsoever, though, this is going to give the Ravens an opportunity to win this game at home.
I really like that selection, and I think like the key to this game, right, is like missed tackles, right? You can't have them. You have to eliminate them. A couple of years ago, when the Bills played the Baltimore Ravens, I believe in that game they only had 4. Last week, Baltimore and Dallas, 10 missed tackles for the Dallas Cowboys in that game. Do you know how many missed tackles, Ryan, the Bills have had in their first 3 games?
Like, I'm going to say maybe a handful, 5.
11.
11, okay.
3. But versus
like
10 in one game.
Yeah,
week 1 was the worst one. The last 2 weeks has not been as bad. 4 of those 11 missed tackles have been Cam Lewis. And so this is a Horns Up podcast. We are a big Cam Lewis podcast. Jamarcus Ingram, Joe Andreessen, obviously. But for Cam Lewis, like the tackling has to be so good in this game. And you go back to the win a couple years ago when the Bills went into Baltimore, came back and won that game. Taron Johnson played outstanding. No missed tackles. He was super important to what they wanted to do in the middle of the field. So I agree with you. I'm lined up almost completely. And speaking of being lined up, we are as lined up as ever with our Shout Buffalo Bills insiders. You can become, I've seen a couple people trickling in over the last couple of days. Welcome to the party. We are going to ratchet that thing up over the next couple of days. The Shout Insider text line, you can join right now. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month. After that, all you have to do is text 716-528-6727. You'll get instructions how to sign up, or go to joinsubtext.com/shoutbuffalobills. And the Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. All right, you bring up that second level. We talk a little bit about the linebackers, Cam Lewis, Jamarcus Ingram when he's in the game as well. And man, I wonder sneakily if this could be a game where Jamarcus Ingram gets a little bit of an uptick in snap count, and maybe he splits a little bit more with Cam Lewis, only because of how much more I think effective he is in the box. We'll see. I think that's why they lean into him in that role, and they could still be out there when they're in their dime look, but maybe switching things up. Just something I was thinking about. It's going to come down to the defensive line for me, Ryan, because you go back. I know I already mentioned the Raiders game. That was in Baltimore. Las Vegas going on the road and getting that win. Those 2 offensive players were important, but the player of that game was Max Crosby. And I don't think that there's one guy necessarily that's going to be the person that completely wrecks this game the way that Crosby did in week 2. I mean, 2 sacks for Crosby, 6 tackles, 2 quarterback hits, 4 tackles for a loss, a pass defense. Like, I'm thinking about a collection of things. I'm thinking about Von Miller, who's got a sack in each of his last 3 games, keeping that party rolling, which I think he'll be the first player in Bills history to have 4 sacks in consecutive weeks to start a season if he can do that. I'm thinking about Greg Rousseau, his ability to set the edge, his ability in the run game against not only Derrick Henry, but specifically against Lamar Jackson, trying to keep him contained. I'm thinking of AJ Epinesa and his ability to kind of get up. He was among the league leaders in pass bat downs amongst defensive linemen a season ago. So across that line, you have to be super reliable in the middle. I'm looking at Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Austin Johnson. But on the edge, you have to do all of those game-changing kind of things to keep Lamar Jackson from taking over this game and making big impact plays.
Yeah, 100% on that. And defensive line's a great choice because when you look at where the Ravens are right now, Andrew Voorhees missed the first 2 practices this week. They haven't put out their injury report yet for Friday. Usually has been coming out around 4 p.m. in Baltimore. If he's out in this game, that's an opportunity for this defensive line to, have a mismatch, have an advantage, get into the backfield early on plays, which will help slow down Derrick Henry in his tracks. If you can get in the backfield, he can't get going, even with a little bit of momentum. That's going to help your case. If you can pressure Lamar Jackson immediately, that's going to help your case. Tyler Lindenbaum, the center, missed Monday's practice, limited. I anticipate he'll play, but he's not going to be 100%. They're going to have, 3 guys, whether they play or not. The combination of all 3 are going to be banged up. I think Voorhees is leaning maybe closer to not playing in this one. The other 2 should. If the Bills D-line can win those battles against a beat-up offensive lineman, a backup offensive lineman, that's going to bode well in this matchup where, like I said, they're going to try to attack the short intermediate areas, and that's going to help benefit those guys if you're getting Ed Oliver in on consistent pressures, if you're winning off the edge with Von Miller, Greg Rousseau, making life difficult for Jackson and Derrick Henry.
Let's get to, we talked about our players to watch. Let's get to some keys to this game and something that we'll each give one. I'm going to talk about, it's always important, right? Like whenever you go into these things and talk about keys of the game, like get takeaways, limit turnovers, all those kinds of things. They're obvious, right? But I think that some things are more specific depending on the matchups. And for me, I think what really fuels this Ravens team and specifically its offense is the efficiency when they have it on third down, when they're able to kind of keep drives going, keep attacking, keep putting pressure on you. You go to the Ravens week, they were 27%, Ryan, on third down. And I thought that was key because over the course of the game, as they weren't able to sustain drives, it gave the Raiders chances to not only stay in the game, but hang around long enough to where the momentum shifted. And when the offense started going late in the game, that offense for Baltimore wasn't executing on those big money third down plays. And what goes into that? Stopping the run, forcing third and long instead of third and manageable, because 3rd and 5 in that range and lower, you have the ultimate weapon, just like the Bills do in Lamar Jackson, able to kind of come up with some kind of creativity, get out in space, get those first downs, keep drives going. So for me, the number one key to this game for me is executing on third down, forcing the drives to end with kicks, whether it's punts or field goals.
Yeah, that's a great point. And their injury report did come out. I was just checking while you were talking. Jalen Armour Davis, cornerback, is out. Voorhees is doubtful, and Lindenbaum is questionable. So there's their final injury report for this one. For me, Matt, though, great key to the game. I'm going to go on the offense side of the ball, staying ahead of the chains. Limiting the penalties for this team. This is going to be a very rowdy atmosphere on Sunday Night Football. I think they're calling for like a darkness, like fans wearing like black or purple or something like that in the crowd. If I saw that tweet correctly on my lunch break, so it's going to be a great environment. It's going to be loud. It's going to be up to the Bills to stay ahead of the chains, especially early, get some points on the board, and maybe get ahead of this Ravens team that has traditionally struggled when playing from behind. If they can do that, there's a good chance for this team to move to 4-0.
All right, so it's prediction time. Bills 3-0, 1-2 Baltimore Ravens. I think a very desperate Baltimore Ravens team. I don't think you want to go to 1-3 in that division with Pittsburgh playing and probably those other 2 teams trying to figure out a way to figure it out, although it hasn't been very good in that division so far through 3 weeks. But I'm going with the Bills. And there's a couple reasons why. I think that they've had a lot of games now to get used to what it's like to play against Derrick Henry. I know it's a little bit of a different animal this year because, listen, that zone read with Henry and Lamar Jackson is such a weapon. And you have to be so disciplined in the way that you defend against it. But I think that they have the players in their front seven to do just that. I like the physical nature of a Balin Spector in this game, right? So you have him, you have Dorian Williams, who I think is playing the best ball of his career, being kind of like a firecracker out there, flying around, being physical. I can also see in the run game guys like Christian Benford getting involved and Taylor Rapp being involved. This is the game where you want all the physicality that you can handle. The one thing I wonder about on the other end of it is how healthy do the Bills come out of this game against the Baltimore Ravens team. But I think offensively, it's just been too easy for the Bills through 3 weeks for them to all of a sudden come into an unsolvable puzzle. I think the offensive line is better than the defensive line for the Baltimore Ravens. I think Roquan Smith in coverage as a potential spy could be interesting, but I think there's ways to attack this team, neutralize Kyle Hamilton. The Bills win it 30-20.
Yeah, when we did our game-by-game predictions, this was the first game that I had the Bills losing on that week-by-week basis. But the way the Bills have played over the first 3 weeks, the way the Ravens have let teams stay in games, I have to flip my pick. I have to go with the Bills in this one. I was talking about this game earlier with my daughter, who's having her 14th birthday today. Shout out, Ellie. Happy 14th birthday. And when I went back... Yeah, so I went back and forth on that. I have decided it's going to be a close game. It's going to come down to a one-score game. Bills win this one 27-24. I think that with the men that they're down on defense, the Ravens do have some success. They put up some points. They have a really good 1-2 punch at tight end that they can target in that short passing game. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, you mentioned it, but this Bills offense, I think that they have a counterpunch to everything that the Ravens are going to try to do. And in these close games, the Bills, I like them a lot more than I do the Ravens in those scenarios.
All right, that's going to do it for the preview edition. Both of us have the Bills winning this one, and both of us are suggesting that you head over to Tops before game time because right now they have the quarterback blitz going on, which means get ready to score big with the Tops quarterback blitz from September 1st to October 12th. Shop over 25 of your fan favorite brands with your bonus plus and earn a quarterback for each one you buy. Pepsi, Coke, Bargs, Powerade, Tostitos, Kraft, Rositas, Gatorade, Tim Hortons, Bounty, Body Armor, Sprite, and so many more of your favorite brands. There's no limit to the savings you can rack up. Score touchdowns with these deals and keep the savings rolling. Ryan, we're going to be rolling on Sunday night, early Monday morning with Shout. Come join us after the game. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game.